Welcome to the Padres Postgame Show on the Padres Radio Network. Coming up, we'll deliver a full recap of today's game, including highlights from the biggest moments. We'll take a trip down to the manager's office to hear from Mike Shildt. Plus, we'll bring you scores from around Major League Baseball. The Padres Postgame Show starts now on the Padres Radio Network.
Welcome into our Padres post-game show here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Final score in this one in New York, the Mets 5 and the Padres 1. Padres back to 500 at 37-37. Mets improved to 32-37, and now the Padres will look to avoid a series sweep tomorrow in New York City. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. A lot to do on our post-game coverage. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll have all the radio highlights for you. Recap this game from start to finish, but I thought Jesse and Tony wrapped it up pretty nicely. It's hard to win a baseball game when you have two hits, and the Padres did have one of those hits be a Jackson Merrill home run, his second straight game with a solo home run. But when your 21-year-old rookie provides a solo home run in the first game of this series, and that's the only run you score, and then he does it again in the second game of the series, and that's the only run you score, it is really hard to win baseball games like that, and the Padres did that the last 2 days as they fall 5-1. So you look at the last couple of days, was the pitching great here today? Adam Mazur, obviously, third major league start, very wild. He was actually able to somehow get through 3 innings with no runs given up, which was sort of miraculous because he walked 6 in the first 3 innings, but then gives up a run in the 4th inning, becomes a 3-run bottom half of the 4th inning, and we'll get into more of what transpired in that 4th inning. But the bottom line is this: Padres in this series, the last 2 games, 2 runs on 7 hits combined. And again, 2 of those hits are Jackson Merrill solo home runs, and those are the only runs the Padres have scored in this series. And the struggles against left-handed pitching continue. We saw it yesterday with Sean Manaea. He went 5 innings, 1 run given up. Padres didn't do any major damage against him. And we saw it here today against the guy in Jose Quintana, who's a veteran lefty, but somebody who came into this game, like we illustrated pregame, really struggling entering this start. I mean, Quintana entering this start had a 7.16 ERA in his past 7 starts, and he ended up putting together 6 innings, 1 run given up in this game. And again, the only run he gave up was on the solo home run to Merrill. So this was unfortunately another game against a left-handed starter, and we went through the numbers pregame. The Padres have slugged not very well at all. One of the worst slugging percentages as a team in baseball against left-handed starters this season, and I have a lot of lefty numbers to get to later in our post-game coverage because it's not pretty against the left-handed starters, and this game fell right along with those. Jose Quintana has been in the midst of a lot of struggles, and he threw a quality start today against the Padres. 6 innings, 1 run given up. So unfortunately, the luck against lefties, it has not really turned around. And the part that is really surprising lately is this. If you go back to the final game against Kansas City on the road in that last road trip before the Padres got swept by the Angels, the Padres have now, after starting the year 19-10 on the road, they have now lost 6 in a row on the road if you go back to that Sunday in Kansas City. And in those 6 losses, they've only scored a grand total of 10 runs in those 6 games. So we know for the most part, really until a couple of weeks ago, the Padres had been a great offensive team on the road. They had played really well on the road. But you now go back the last 6 games, they're 0-6 with only 10 runs scored. So the offense has really been very quiet on the road as of late. And as of late, even if you include the game on Wednesday against Oakland, which was a great win for the Padres, a great win, the Jackson Merrill walk-off home run, nobody's disputing that. But if you go back the last 3 games, the Padres don't have a run on a non-home run. All their runs in the last 3 games, 1 win, 2 losses, have come on home runs. And that worked out well on Wednesday, but In the first two games of this series in New York, the Padres just aren't hitting much at all. They're not stringing hits together again, just 2 runs on 7 hits in this series in the first 2 games, and that's against 2 lefty starters to begin the game. So I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, because the Padres continue to really struggle against lefties. And look, you zoom out, and once again, the Padres dropped to 37-37. They're back at 500 again. And after you had a series against Oakland where I wouldn't say the Padres played perfectly, but they found ways to win. They pick up their first series sweep of the season. You feel like there's some momentum. They're going on the road, a place they've hit well, a place they've played well. Well, now you lose 2 in a row to the Mets, and you're back to 500, and now you're trying to avoid a sweep tomorrow. So, unfortunately, through now 74 games, the 1 step forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, so on and so on, it continues, and the Padres will look to avoid dropping below 500 tomorrow. But again, you come back to this here today. You have 2 hits in a game. It's just hard to win a game, right? I mean, how many games are you going to win when you have 2 hits? Not very many, and the Padres did not do much offensively in this game at all, and we'll talk much more about it as we go along here on our post-game coverage. When we come back, we'll hear all the radio highlights from this game, recap it from start to finish. We'll also hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt, and much, much more as the Mets have won the first 2 games of this series. Final score, New York 5, San Diego 1. More post-game coverage after this. Our postgame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Mets 5 and the Padres 1, as the Padres have dropped the first two games of this three-game series in New York and the first two games of this six-game road trip to New York and Philadelphia. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. As we wrap this one up, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a handful of minutes. Stay tuned for that. We'll recap this game from start to finish in just a moment as well. But when you talk about the Padres really needing to find a way to win tomorrow and not get swept in this series, I think part of that is the fact that you're going to play the best team in the National League coming up this week in Philadelphia. That Phillies team, we saw it at Petco Park earlier this season, and all you got to do is look at their record. They are really good, and they've played really well, and they've been really, really good at home. So that is not going to be an easy series at all, and you would hate to have to go there after a sweep at the hands of the Mets. So it does make tomorrow's game, let's be honest about it, feel important. And we'll see if the Padres can pick up a win tomorrow against right-hander, with right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres tomorrow. We'll hear from Mike Shildt coming up in just a few minutes. First, let's recap how this one went down in the Big Apple.
What moments had the biggest impact on today's game? We'll paint you a picture with our game recap on the Padres Radio Network.
The early storyline, Padres starter Adam Mazur, making his third major league start, was dancing in and out of trouble, while Mets starter Jose Quintana was dealing. Adam Mazur walked 2 in the first inning, but got out of it. He walked 2 more in the second as the Mets loaded the bases, but he got out of it. Mazur then walked 2 more in the third, but he got out of it again. So somehow, some way, Adam Mazur, despite walking 6 in the first 3 innings, he had put together 3 scoreless innings. Jose Quintana for the Mets was great early on, 4 scoreless innings to begin his day. Mazur then got the first 2 outs in the bottom half of the 4th inning, but then Francisco Lindor hit a 2-out double. Brandon Nimmo was next.
Here's Nimmo, left-handed batter, swings at the first pitch, lines it into right center. That's going to give the Mets the lead. Tatis cuts it off in front of the warning track, sends it back to the infield, but it's an RBI double for Brandon Nimmo as Lindor crosses the plate, and New York in front 1-0. Ironically, without a walk.
That was it for Mazur. He came out. Johnny Brito came in to face J.D. Martinez.
A look back now, the 3-2 pitch, sent in the air to deep right field. Tatis back. He is at the wall, looking up, gonna go. Opposite field home run for J.D. Martinez. Almost the exact spot he hit his walk-off against the Marlins a couple of nights ago. Just like that, 3-0 New York here in the bottom of the 4th.
So the Padres down 3-0, but they would answer in the top of the 5th inning against Quintana. That was courtesy of the rookie.
Here's Merrill, lefty to lefty. Jackson swings, hits one in the air to deep right center field. Stewart over into the gap. He's watching this one. Gonna go! Jackson Merrill again! His 4th home run in the last 3 games, and the Padres are on the board here in the 5th.
Merrill showing off the power once again, his 7th home run of the season. Quintana gave up just the Merrill home run in the 5th inning. Then he pitched the scoreless 6th inning. Johnny Brito did a good job keeping it a 2-run deficit. Enyel De Los Santos entered for the bottom half of the 7th inning. Padres still down 3-1. J.D. Martinez led off.
Brito ends up going 2 1/3, allowed the 1 run on 2 hits. Martinez swings here, hits another one into deep right center field, and again it is gone. Unbelievable. Same spot as his last at-bat. Same spot as his walk-off the other night against the Marlins. And Martinez, 2nd home run of the day, makes it 4-1 New York here in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Martinez is red hot. He would be on base all 5 times to the plate in this game. 3 hits, a home run, 2 in this game, and the Mets had a 4-1 lead. Padres couldn't get anything in the 7th or 8th innings against Mets reliever Daniel Nunez. Mets got another run in the bottom half of the 8th inning against Stephen Kolek. That came on a Brandon Nimmo RBI single. 2 RBIs on the day for him. Mets had a 5-1 lead. Edwin Diaz, after pitching 2 straight days, unavailable for the 9th inning. Wasn't a save opportunity anyway, so the Mets went to Reed Garrett, who ended up putting together a 1-2-3 9th inning, and that was that. In Queens, final score, Mets 5, Padres 1. The Padres had a grand total of 1 run, on 2 hits in this game. One of those hits, the Jackson Merrill solo home run. Like we said in the opening segment, Padres have just 2 runs on 7 hits in this series. And again, all the runs they've scored in this series have come on a couple of Jackson Merrill solo shots. Padres back to 500 again at 37-37. And the Mets, they're playing well. They're up to 32-37, the record on the year. And with the win here today, the Mets have now won 10 of their last 14 games. So they're playing better as of late. We'll see if the Padres can avoid a sweep tomorrow. Let's go back to Citi Field in New York and hear from the Padres manager.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
I can start with Adam. Just somehow navigated and then just caught up with him, or?
Yeah, dodged traffic the whole way. A lot of it self-inflicted. He made pitches when he had to, showed some intestinal fortitude to be able to escape some jams. Got 2 quick outs. The ironic part is he got 2 quick outs in his last inning, and Lindor put a bat on him, and then Nemo got him and chased him, and didn't want him to see Martinez for the 3rd time. But I don't think we could have brought in, Walter Johnson to face Martinez right now. I don't think it would matter. So anyway, just victim of his own, lack of ability to command the ball consistently, but give him a ton of credit for being able to navigate and get into the 4th inning without giving up a run, and gave us a chance.
If there's one thing you guys knew, it was that he was a strike thrower.
Right.
What's the theory on what's happened since?
I think we discussed it for the game. Listen, I think it's pretty accurate with this. You get to this stage, it's a little bit of a feeling out process. I don't know if the zones are tighter or not. That's not a part of it. I don't think too much, but it is real. But bigger environment. Just feeling your way through it a little bit, and I think that's part of it too. Just generally speaking, I can't speak for him or his emotions, but when you see guys get into traffic, and they go, you know what, I'm going to get after it, and not to say he wasn't getting after it early. That's not the point at all. But when you go, I'm just going to go let my ability go and play, then you see positive things. So. It's a learning curve for sure, and Adam hadn't have a ton of AAA time, so we're at a big stage. But I commend him highly for being able to take a step back and make pitches and throw up some zeros. The guy left with 1 run on the board with 2 outs in the 4th, so he did his part.
Rare kind of day for the offense.
Yeah, rare kind of day. Not as many as consistent as bats as. Again, Quintana, it's about balance and timing. Shadows were out there. That part's real. They're hitting in them too, and able to get some balls out of the ballpark. So, he got the guys off balance a little bit. He pitched. He's a pitch maker. He's a guy that's been in this league a long time and survived being able to do it with stuff and moxie. And he pitched well today, and their bullpen was effective as well.
Second straight day with Merrill getting a home run off a lefty. Does he seem to be getting more comfortable against left-handed pitching in the recent weeks?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. He's taken good at-bats against lefties all year. He had a really big hit early in the season in a big moment in the 8th over in L.A. against Vesia. He's shown the ability to just, have good at-bats regardless. Obviously, being an everyday guy, it's one of the things that we were intentional about early in the season. We're going to hit for him against lefties. He's going to be an everyday guy. He's going to show the ability to do it. He's clearly shown that ability, and now he's opened up his game and driving the baseball regardless of handiness.
And second straight night where he's the only run. Do you see him being more comfortable as a leader, even as emotional leader, or as you see him coming around third base? Like, how do you see him being in that role?
Yeah, no, I think we've got a lot of guys that are self-led in our clubhouse, and I'm really grateful for this clubhouse. It's a very, very it's a pro clubhouse, and it allows Jackson to go be himself, and everybody's welcomed him and done their part, but also he's allowed to lead himself and go bring that energy that Jackson brings, and that's contagious and important.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt. After this game, Padres fall 5-1 to the New York Mets. And before we go to break, let's just talk a little bit about Adam Mazur, because, look, it is interesting. Mazur, his reputation and the numbers back it up. in the minor leagues over the course of the last couple of years. No doubt about it. He was a premier control guy in the minor leagues. I mean, the numbers are really, really impressive in the minors. He had issued just 26 walks in 147 minor league innings before he got called up. So far in the major leagues, and look, this could be for a few different reasons, right? It could be for it being the majors, and hitters are better, and they are more selective, and they're more patient, and they're not biting at things that minor league hitters would bite at. It could be nerves on the part of Adam Mazur, pitching at the highest level of competition. Could be tighter zones. There could be a number of factors, but the numbers are the numbers. Adam Mazur now in 12 2/3 innings in his 3 starts, he has walked 13 batters. Now, somehow, some way, you look at a couple of the outings, he walked 4 in his first start against the Angels, only gave up 1 run in 6 innings. And here today, he walked a grand total of 6 in 3 innings, and he didn't end up giving up a run in the first 3 innings. So look, he's had some moments where he's been able to battle out of trouble, and he deserves some credit for that. But he's playing a dangerous game, I think is the real point about it. 13 walks in 12 2/3 innings, and my goodness, in those first 3 innings, I mean, he was he was just in major trouble and found a way out of it. Ends up getting charged with 2 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings in this game, and you heard Mike Shildt allude to it. The sort of ironic part about the start for Mazur here today was that he gives up the 6 walks in 3 innings, doesn't allow a run, but then he gets the first 2 outs of the 4th inning, by far and away the best start to an inning he had all day, and then in the blink of an eye, he gives up back-to-back doubles to Lindor and Nimmo, and that's how he ends up giving up his first run after there were 2 outs and nobody on, back-to-back doubles, and the Mets finally found a way to get a run after they had walked 6 times in the first 3 innings. So we'll see what the future is with Adam Mazur, at least right now. Yu Darvish threw 60 pitches in the bullpen yesterday, got up and down a handful of times. It really was more like kind of a simulated game, not against hitters, but as far as the number of pitches, the up-downs for Darvish, based on Kevin Acey's reporting earlier today, it seems like there's a possibility that Darvish could return on this next homestand, depending on how he comes out of this bullpen session. So there is a chance that this is the last we see of Adam Mazur, at least for now, because Darvish may be coming back here during this upcoming homestand. We'll see how it all shakes out. Mazur's not going to have another start during this road trip, so we'll see what ultimately happens with Adam Mazur. But you hope, if this is it for him in the major leagues, at least this time around, I think he's somebody who the Padres plan is going to be a big part of their future moving forward, certainly. But hopefully there's a learning experience here, and obviously he's been quite different than what he's been in the minor leagues is the point. He was a real control guy in the minors, and it's been really the opposite here in the major league so far. But the good news is that your major league career is not made up of 3 starts, right? And he's got plenty of time to work on things and figure out how to have sharper command in the major league starts to come. So we'll see what the situation is with Mazur and Darvish moving forward. And we'll see if the Padres can bounce back tomorrow. You look at this game. Let's be honest about it. Mazur, only went 3 2/3 innings. I know Brito gave up the home run, and then the home run given up by De Los Santos. By the way, that was his 9th home run of the season allowed for De Los Santos. That's the most among major league relievers. He's really had a tough time with the home run ball this year. But we go back to what I said in the opening segment. It's just hard to win games. I mean, the Padres could have given up 15 runs in this game. And still, if you only have 2 hits, it doesn't give you much chance to win any baseball game in general. So that, to me, that is the main issue and culprit here today. Even though the score was 5-1, the Padres would have needed a lot more offense when you have just 2 hits and a single run, and you've done that now 2 days in a row with the single run coming on Merrill solo home runs. It is just very, very hard to win baseball games like that, no matter what your pitching does. And the Padres fall in Game 2 of this series 5-1. We'll step aside. We'll talk more about this one as we continue to break this game down. If you want to get a phone call in, you can. 833-288-0973. the phone number. You can also chime in on social media. Tweet at me at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Instagram DMs open as well. Sammy Lev there too. Let me know what you thought about this game, what you're thinking about the Padres right now as they fall back to 500 at 37-37. More post-game coverage after this. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Mets 5 and the Padres 1, as the Padres have dropped the first two games of this three-game series in New York. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. Mets had 5 runs on 10 hits in this game, including a couple of home runs by J.D. Martinez, who is red hot, and he's torturing the Padres so far in this series. Had the 2-run double to basically win the game yesterday. Hit 3 hits, including a couple of home runs here today. 3 RBIs total on the day for J.D. Martinez, and the Padres just could not get much going offensively. Put it this way, Martinez had 3 hits, drove in 3 runs. The Padres had 2 hits total in the game through their lineup today. So that sort of tells the story in this one. Padres offense very much struggling the first 2 games of this series. Just a combined 2 runs on 7 hits to begin this series. Let's tell you about today's relief pitcher of the game.
Which pitcher was able to come in and slam the door shut? It's time for the relief pitcher of the game in support of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, providing food assistance to local children, families, and seniors in need. To get help or give help, visit SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Our relief pitcher of the game here today, we're going to go with the New York Met because really not a whole lot to pick from the Padres side of things, and we'll talk about the Padres bullpen in just a moment. But I think it's pretty clear. You look at the work of Daniel Nunez today for the Mets. 2 scoreless innings out of the bullpen, 27 pitches total. He was really good. So for that reason, Nunez will be our relief pitcher of the game. right-hander out of the New York Mets bullpen. Padres bullpen had sort of a tough day. Johnny Brito gave up the 2-run home run to J.D. Martinez, went from a 1-0 deficit to a 3-0 deficit with that swing. Now, Brito, to his credit, did end up pitching a scoreless 5th inning and a scoreless 6th inning to keep it at a 2-run deficit, but giving up the home run, that was pretty costly in this game. Enyel De Los Santos gave up another home run to Martinez. That made it a 4-1 game, so hard to pick him today. And De Los Santos continues to struggle with the long ball. I said it earlier, but for De Los Santos, that's now 9 home runs given up this season. That is the most among major league relievers. And then you have Stephen Kolek, who could not keep it a 3-run deficit in the 8th inning, ended up giving up 3 hits. The Mets made it a 5-1 game, and whether it was a 3-run game or a 4-run game, I don't know that it would have made a huge difference because the Padres went down 1-2-3 in the 9th inning anyway. But look, Kolek's got one job there, and that's to keep it a 3-run deficit, and he could not do it. So not really a guy to pick on the Padres side of things. So again, for relief pitcher of the game, we go with Daniel Nunez of the Mets. And the Mets bullpen has been very good in this series. 3 scoreless innings today, 4 scoreless innings in yesterday's game. So a grand total of 7 scoreless innings for Mets relievers in this series so far. And we'll see if the Padres can flip that script tomorrow. When we come back, we'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. More reaction to this ball game to come as well. Final score, Mets 5, Padres 1. More post-game coverage after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Padres 1, the Mets 5, as the Mets have won the first 2 games of this 3-game series in New York. Padres will try to avoid a 3-game sweep tomorrow. It'll be right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres tomorrow, right-hander Tyler McGill on the mound for the Mets. We have an early start time tomorrow, just so you know, 10:40 a.m. first pitch, and our pregame coverage will begin at 9 9:40. So hope you can join us bright and early tomorrow for Padres baseball here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Tough day for the Padres, no doubt about that. Another very quiet day for the Padres offense. 2 runs on 7 hits so far in this series. The only runs the Padres have scored in this series so far, well, they've come on the rookies' home runs. A solo shot for Jackson Merrill yesterday, a solo shot here today. He's hit 4 home runs in his last 3 games. Really impressive for Jackson Merrill. Certainly a bright spot in today's loss. And, not enough in this one as the Mets win it by a final score of 5-1. Let's tell you about today's player of the game.
Which player had the biggest impact on today's game? Let's find out who is today's player of the game. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Catch every game at Patties and Pints. Plus, enjoy $4 beer every Thursday. Visit valleyviewcasino.com today.
Well, I told you about Jackson Merrill, who, from the Padres' perspective, certainly had the biggest impact on this game, right? The solo home run, he's accounted for all the offense in this series for the Padres. But look, it's tough to look at this ball game, and it's one of those days where you look at what J.D. Martinez did, and he sort of has to be player of the game for the Mets, right? 3 hits, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. He's red hot right now, hitting the ball the other way exceptionally well. So, as always, doesn't give me any great pleasure to hand out our Padres Radio Network player of the games to non-Padres, but sometimes it feels like it's got to be that way. And today, I think, is one of those days. J.D. Martinez for the Mets. 3 hits, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs total. Great day for him. He was on all 5 times in this game, walked twice as well. So 5 plate appearances. He was on base 5 times. He'll be our player of the game. Doesn't take away from what Jackson Merrill did, just for perspective on it. Merrill, in his first 65 games of the season in his rookie campaign, 3 home runs. He's got 4 in his last 3 games. Baseball can be a really, really funny sport, but even though it can be a funny sport, what we might be seeing is Jackson Merrill just sort of grow as a player as he goes along here in his age 20 and then age 21 season, right? Somebody who has put together quality at-bats from the very start of his major league career, has hit to all fields from the very start of his major league career, opening day on. But now lately, the power, for whatever reason, is starting to show up a lot more. So it'll be fascinating to see if it's something that continues with Jackson Merrill. If we continue to see this power surge, it's been fun to watch, and obviously had the walk-off home run on Wednesday as well. So good stuff for Jackson Merrill. Certainly he had a big impact on this game and provided the only run for the Padres here today and yesterday for that matter as well, which is kind of part of the problem for the Padres when you look at this series so far. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you what's going on around the major leagues.
Let's take a trip around the bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores from around the major leagues. We have a few finals already today. Braves beat the Rays 9-2 in Atlanta. Matt Olson, Marcelo Zuna, back-to-back home runs in that game in Atlanta. Tigers beat the Astros 13-5 in Houston. Riley Green, a couple of home runs in that game, 6 RBIs for Detroit. Justin Verlander was scratched from that game with a neck issue, so stay tuned for updates on that, but he was scratched from his start in Houston today. Brewers beat the Reds 3-1 in Milwaukee. Joey Ortiz, a 3-run home run in that game for the Brew Crew. Orioles beat the Phillies 6-2 in Baltimore. Anthony Santander, 2 home runs in that game for the O's. Nationals beat the Marlins 4-0 in D.C. DJ Hurst, talented left-hander for Washington. He struck out 13 in that game for the Nats. Angels beat the Giants in San Francisco 4-3 earlier today. Blue Jays blanked the Guardians 5-0 in Toronto. And the Cubs beat the Cardinals 5-1 in Chicago. Shota Imanaga, another really good start for the Cubbies in that game. He has an ERA right now of 1.89. Imanaga went 7 innings, 1 earned run given up, struck out 6, and walked nobody. Games going on right now. Red Sox ahead of the Yankees at Fenway Park, 1-0. First inning there. Mariners in front of the Rangers, 1-0 in Seattle in the first inning. Games yet to begin. Royals in L.A. against the Dodgers at 6:10. Pirates and the Rockies in Colorado at 6:10. White Sox and the D-backs in Arizona at 7:10. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Saturday. When we come back on our post-game coverage, we have a few things left to do. I'll read some of your tweets and DMs. We'll dive into those. If you want to squeeze a phone call, then you can. 833-288-0973. The phone number to call, as always. We'll have our play of the game, and I will do a little debriefing on the Padres' continued issues against left-handers and left-handed starters in particular. We're going to go through some of the numbers because we've seen it now the last 2 days and really the last 4 days. If you want to look at the whole thing, Padres have faced 4 consecutive left-handed starters going back to that series against Oakland, and they've scored 7 runs in 21 innings against those starters, so it's not been totally quiet, but has not certainly been a ton of damage either. And we're going to dive deeper into that when we come back. We'll wrap things up, get you ready for tomorrow. Again, the final score in the middle game of this 3-game set. Mets 5, Padres 1. More post-game after this. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Mets 5 and the Padres 1. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. Padres have lost the first 2 games of this 3-game series in New York. They'll try to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Mets tomorrow. We'll have more on that ball game coming up in just a little bit. Preview tomorrow's game. We'll read through some of your tweets and DMs here right now and get to some of that before I give you the the debriefing that I promised on the Padres against lefty pitching and left-handed starters so far this season. So let's read through some of your tweets and DMs. We've got Robin on Twitter saying, "This team gives me emotional whiplash. Up is down and down is up. And they have to face the Phillies next. Better get it together mañana." Robin, well said. I agree with you. I think tomorrow's game's really important because the Padres have to go face an excellent Phillies team on the road Monday through Wednesday. That is not going to be an easy series at all, and they really would be well served to not get swept in New York before they head to Philadelphia. And look, the up and down nature of the season, it's been exactly what it is, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's been exactly what it is. It has been up and down. It's been a roller coaster, if you want to call it that. It's been a whirlwind. It's been elevator, like however you want to put it. Yeah, I mean, look, it's been one step forward, one step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, so on and so on and so on. It has just been that way, and the Padres once again find themselves at 37-37 on the year, back to 500 after their first series sweep, where you felt like they were starting to pick up some steam. It just has not been a team that has been able to sustain streaks and runs. It just has not. So doesn't mean it can't happen, but to this point, they've been a 500 team. And after today, that's exactly where their record sits. So I totally get it. It's been up and down, and it's toying with your emotions. But hey, a 500 team, and I'm not even saying the Padres are going to end up a 500 team. You hope there's a run in there at some point to get them well above. But, you know, when a team is 500 over the course of 70-plus games, yeah, it can be a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs. It can toy with your emotions on a day-to-day basis, and that's sort of what it's been so far. I have Kathleen on Instagram DMing here, and I thought it was interesting and worth bringing up. Kathleen DMing me saying, am I correct in thinking that Luis Arraez has been struggling lately? Do you think it has anything to do with his shoulder? Well, look, I have no idea if it has anything to do with his shoulder, but you do look at the last 6 games, and it's interesting because you'll look at the last 6 games for Arraez, 26 at-bats, he's hitting just 192, which for Arraez is really rare over a 6-game span, right? It's been a little uneven because he had a couple of 0 for 5s in a row, one against Arizona and then one against Oakland, the Sunday and the Monday against Oakland. But then he had 2 hits in the middle game of the series against the A's. He was 1 for 4 in the final game of the series. He did have 2 hits last night. He was 0 for 4 today. So you'll zoom out a little bit, look at the last 6 games, and it's certainly been tougher. He's only 5 for 26, which is a rarity by Luis Arraez standards. But a lot of that came in the 2 0 for 5s and the 0 for 4 today. There was a 3-game stretch in there where, let's be honest about it, he did have 5 hits in the span of 12 at-bats. So, look, of anybody on this team offensively, I'm not worried about Luis Arraez, but he's had some rare offers, which, he doesn't typically have 3 offers or, games where he has a combined 0 for 14 over the course of 3 games in a span of 6 games is the point. I would not worry about Luis Arraez, but he did have a quiet day here today. Yesterday, he had 2 of the 5 hits. Arraez had 2 hits. Profar had 2 hits. Merrill had 1. That was it. Today, it was Merrill with 1, and the other hit came on the first inning double for Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, think of it this way. The Padres had a double in the first inning from Tatis, the second batter of the game. They had 1 hit the rest of the game, and it was the Merrill home run. So I said it earlier, it is awfully hard to win games when you have 2 hits in a ball game, and that's what the Padres had here today. Before we hear our play of the game and wrap things up, I do want to get just quickly here into the issues against left-handers, because it is something that we continue to see. Right? I mean, the Padres, they've, crossed out some different items that have concerned you, right? They swept the series. There are some other things in there they've done. But the struggles against lefties have continued, and against left-handed starters as well. The Padres entered today the 3rd lowest slugging percentage in baseball this season against left-handed starters at .334. Only 2 teams are lower, the Marlins and the Blue Jays, that was entering today. The Padres entered today hitting .231 against left-handed starters, and they're now 11-15, including today, when facing a lefty starter. You compare that to righties, it's a different world. The Padres are leading the majors in batting average against righties at 276 and on base percentage at 341. And they're 26-22 this season when they face a right-handed starting pitcher. So for whatever reason, they have really struggled against lefties after being good against lefties last season. And the numbers back up kind of what you feel about it. And on top of that, it just has not shown, at least through 74 games, a sign of turning around. I mean, Minaya yesterday, look, Minaya has had some really good days and stretches in the major leagues. We know that. Yesterday, the Padres got a Merrill home run off him, and that was it. He went 5+ innings, gave up just the 1 run. Jose Quintana had been in the midst of a really rough stretch before today's game. The Padres got 2 hits against him, the 1 home run by Merrill, and that was it over 6 innings. So you can look at all these numbers, and they just are what they are. And the Padres are continuing to really struggle against lefties. And I'll sort of wrap up the conversation with this. You may have heard me a couple of weeks ago, our friend Chris Ello from Gwynn and Chris here on 97.3 The Fan, weekdays 2 to 6 p.m. He has been on the lefty stats for me for a couple of weeks now. Well, not just for me, for himself as well, for the whole station. He's been on this lefty stat lookup where he's kept really, really good track of some of the numbers against lefties. So Chris providing this. Including today, left-handed starters against the Padres have a 1.72 ERA in their last 20 starts going back to April 27th. And the Padres are 6-14 in those 20 games where they faced a left-handed starter. And out of those 20 starts, 15 of the 20 left-handed pitchers have allowed 1 or no runs. And Jose Quintana fits in that category today. So again, the main number to keep in mind, in the last 20 starts that left-handed starters have made against the Padres, they have a 1.72 ERA. I mean, that's really good. And that's in a total of 120 innings now. So it's real. I mean, they just have had just a massive amount of trouble against left-handed pitching. And it would be one thing if it were like that last year, but it wasn't. They had 271 against lefties last year, and they came into today. I'm not sure what the number is after today, but they came into today at 231 against left-handed pitchers. I mean, that's a difference of 40 points entering today. So, look, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I said it a month ago. The Padres desperately have to figure out these issues against lefties because they just got to hit lefty pitching better than this. They have the names in the lineup to do it, the right-handed bats in the lineup to do it, and they have got to find a way to hit lefties better than this because you have to take advantage of when you face a lefty if you've got some of the bats from the right side the Padres do, and they have not done that to this point. So that continues to be a major concern, and it was certainly a concern here today as Jose Quintana was really, really good, 6 innings and just 1 run given up. Padres fall 5-1 to the New York Mets. Let's hear our play of the game.
What was the crucial play that determined who came out on top? This is today's Play of the Game, presented by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
I'll look back. Now the 3-2 pitch. Sent in the air to deep right field. Tatis back. He is at the wall looking up. Gonna go. Opposite field home run for J.D. Martinez. Almost the exact spot he hit his walk-off against the Marlins a couple of nights ago. Just like that, 3-0 New York here in the bottom of the 4th.
J.D. Martinez, our play of the game, the 2-run home run in the 4th inning gave the Mets a 3-0 lead. First of 2 home runs on the day for J.D. Martinez. 3 hits total on all 5 times in this game. Martinez now 8 home runs in a Met uniform after starting the season late, signing late. But he's been very good for the Mets so far. 8 home runs, hitting .286 on the year now. That's our play of the game. And the Padres did have nice play in their own right today. Jackson Merrill with his 2nd home run of the series, his 4th in the last 3 days. But looking at the final score in this one, kind of had to go with a Met play, I think, here today. J.D. Martinez, the home run, and that was plenty in this one as the Mets hang on for a 5-1 win. All right, taking a look ahead to tomorrow. Padres will try to avoid a 3-game sweep at the hands of the New York Mets. Right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres tomorrow. He'll go up against right-hander Tylor Megill on the mound for the Mets. First pitch tomorrow at 10:40 a.m. Our pregame coverage will begin at 9:40. Certainly hope you can join us for a little Padres and pancakes on a Sunday morning. As always, if you missed any of our post-game coverage, you can go back and listen to any or all of it on the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcast. Or if you would rather go watch our post-game show, you can do that as well on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. Taking a look at the final totals here today. For the Mets, 5 runs, 10 hits, 1 error. They left on 11. For the Padres, 1 run, 2 hits, no errors. They left on 3. Winning pitcher in this game, Jose Quintana, who improves to 2-5. Losing pitcher was Adam Mazur, who drops to 1-2 in his early major league career. 0-2 in his early major league career. Time of game, 2 hours, 34 minutes, and the crowd at Citi Field in New York, 37,031. Once again, first pitch tomorrow at 10:40. Pregame coverage begins at 9:40. Until then, for our great studio coordinator, Frank Marchese, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long from inside our San Diego studios. Again, the final score, the New York Mets 5 and the San Diego Padres 1. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning right here on the Padres Radio Network.